My name is Susan Hollenbeck. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I live in Salt Lake City, Utah, and currently I'm employed by the Department of Veteran Affairs, and I work in their substance abuse treatment program and work with veterans who have come back from Iraq and Afghanistan, and even as far back as Vietnam. I also have a small private practice where I've worked with individuals who struggle with substance abuse problems and have been able to find them placement here at Habilitat, where I am right now, in Kaneohe, Hawaii, and it is the place of change. My daughter Gillian was using heroin, and we had attempted to get her clean. In fact, we had worked with one of the psychiatrists I work with, and she had been buying Suboxone off the street to get her clean. And I thought everything was going well. I thought she was clean. She had moved in with some friends, and a friend of hers told me that if he ever suspected her of using again, he would call me. So one Sunday afternoon, I had returned from church, and I get a message on my phone that from this young man that Gillian had relapsed and was using heroin again. So they were asking her to move out because they had told her they didn't want her living there if she was going to be using. So I'm on my way up from my home, that this time was in West Valley, up to the center part of Salt Lake City, up there. And I prayed, and I said to my Heavenly Father, I know you love her more than me. I don't know where to go from here. What do I do? And Habilitat came into my head. Now, I had been familiar with Habilitat when I grew up here in high school. When it opened, it had some friends that had gone there. And then, of course, my sister and her husband are good friends with Danny and Sandy Catata. So I have known about it. But it was, I believe, a direct answer to prayers that she was. So I called my sister, Katie, here in Hawaii, asked her to call Danny. By the time I got up to my daughter's house in Salt Lake, we had solidified a placement for her at Habilitat if she was willing to come and do what was required of her. So at that point, Habilitat was the only answer for me. It was either that or she was going to be living on the streets. Gillian faring through the program, I think, if I'm not mistaken, the very first parent meeting that was held, Jeff said, Gillian Hollenbeck, spoiled, rotten brat, self-centered, ungrateful, and many other adjectives were used, not pleasant ones, to describe this child of mine. And my sister lifted her arm up and said, I'm only the aunt. So that's how she started in the program. She was very defensive. She was picked on. She was ungrateful and wanted to persist in this belief system that I had kicked her out of the house when our conversation was, you have a choice. You go to Habilitat or you live on the streets. So you're kicking me out. You go to Habilitat or you live on the streets. So I bought her a plane ticket for Friday morning, got her to the airport. She didn't have her driver's license because the night before she had left it at the liquor store. Great. So we spent the afternoon at the DMV getting her a license to go get on a plane. Saturday morning, I get her to the airport, change her flight. She sits at the gate and the plane leaves without her. Saturday afternoon, I go down to the airport, buy another ticket, tell the attendant at the ticket counter, I need to go back there with her to get her on a plane to go to rehab in Hawaii. And I was able to go back with her and walk her to the gate to get her into the plane. I've never been so grateful to have her gone. And when I got a call From when they picked her up at the airport, I said to myself, I don't care if I ever see her again. However, things changed about a week later, and the grieving started. Gillian took about a year and a half to really understand that she had issues. This just wasn't about her minimizing that she only relapsed once. This was a bigger issue. And leaving the program, she left after 2.5 years. She got herself an apartment here and a job and was able to take care of herself. However, when she first came back, it was difficult because she kind of slid back into mommy taking care of things. And that created a new challenge in our relationship because I had learned so much, even as a therapist. When you have a child who struggles, you need outside counsel, which I received every week by calling Jeff Nash at Habilitat, telling me to get a grip and to follow through. And now my daughter is going to school. She has a very kind, loving boyfriend who's getting his MBA and a master's in public administration. She's working at a law firm, and she is going to school. She says to me one day, driving to shopping, you know, Mom, I still have nightmares about being at Habilitat. And I listened to myself and didn't say anything. And quickly she replies, but I think it's the only thing that got my attention. What makes Habilitat so special? I think that's an excellent question that as a parent I would want to know. Why I would send my child maybe 3,000, 5,000, 6,000 miles away to this place in Hawaii and give up control, give up influence, because drug addiction is a lifestyle. Drug addiction is more than just taking drugs. It's behaviors, it's learned behaviors, it's learned coping tools, it's learned thinking errors. And some of the best liars I've ever met, well, let me be more personal. One of the best liars I've ever met was my own daughter, who could steal money right in front of me and me not even know she was getting in my wallet. This takes time. It is not a 35-day fix. It is not a 90-day fix. We know that it takes longer even for the brain to clear up. 35 days, the brain isn't clearing up. To get somebody's attention and to teach them that there is something out there more than just drugs takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of work. And people need to understand that that going the easy route for the right now, the easy route is drugs. Long term, it's hell. What is difficult right now creates a life of beauty and wonder, experiences and opportunities. And that's what Habilitat teaches. That if you are willing to put in the time and to understand that I am capable, then I can leave this program and I can go out and accomplish many other things that I probably would have never pursued had I not understood what it takes to stay sober. What kind of treatment can you expect if you send somebody to the Habilitat is, I think, a really valid question again for anyone who is turning a loved one over to a group of people. The first thing is you have a community of counselors who've been there, done that, have been through the program, done that. You know, there is no, blowing smoke when you are talking to somebody who's walked the talk. A big part of the program is behavior modification. Behavior determines privileges. You know what? If I go to work and I do a good job, I get rewarded. I get rewarded by promotions. I get rewarded by a raise in income, I get rewarded that I get to keep my job. Behavior modification is how we get through life. If someone is using drugs, they are learning that if they can deceive, if they can lie, if they can scrounge, whatever they can do to get the drug, they'll do it. What kind of tools? Those are not tools that lead to a productive life. Those are tools that get me through hour by hour, not year by year. And what Habilitat does is it supports the right type of behavior that is expected out of somebody. It's not unrealistic behavior. Ask you to be honest, ask you to be forthcoming, ask you to follow through and do your best, ask you to complete your tasks, and be a whole human being. Be there for others. It's very caring also. It's committed to as a family and supporting one another. It is not hiding and covering up and being enmeshed and being codependent. It is about calling your brother and sister on their behavior, even if it gets them in trouble, because in the long run, that's what's best for them. Why is addiction gating is so prevalent in our society, especially with everything we know about it? We are a society where we do not want to feel pain. We want everything right now. We have microwaves. We want faster speed limits. We want our TVs to turn on immediately. We want everything is speeding up. We want it right now. We do not teach people how to live in emotional pain and how to live with physical pain. And because of that, we are in a quick fix society. We have doctors and dentists and physicians and surgeons who are very quick to prescribe opiates, benzodiazepines, and those are very seductive drugs because they do what we want them to do. They numb us out. If my daughter told me when I asked her, Gillian, why heroin? And she said to me, because it does what I want it to do. I don't have to think. I don't have to worry. There is a lot of competition in the world today. There is a lot of competition to get into good colleges. There's a lot of competition for jobs, and education and experience is really important. There's a lot of anxiety because we have youth who are expecting to buy things and gain things and want things that their parents took 20, 30 years to own. We have a lot of expensive things that they want right now. What is a good way of getting that? A good way of getting that is selling drugs, growing drugs, selling drugs. We have people, and we now have a culture who believes that we should never be in pain. We have legal marijuana. We have bottles and bottles of Lortabs and Oxycontin and Percocets that are prescribed to individuals. We have alcohol that is at my beck and call for alcohol. I can get that anywhere. If I want to feel, if I am stressed, well, the first things I hear are, oh, I need a drink. How do I relax? Oh, I need a drink. Oh, I'm stressed. Oh, I need a drink. We don't teach and support people to deal with stress in healthy ways. Do I think my daughter had a disease? That is such a good question. That is the challenge, I think, in today's society. Is alcohol and drug addiction a disease? Well, you read the literature. The literature supports that there is a disease that happens to the brain. Just like diabetes is a disease. Certain types of heart problems are a lifestyle-related disease. It is a disease that I have 100% control over. There are types of diabetes that if I exercise and eat well and do what I'm supposed to do, I will not have a disease. There are certain types of heart diseases that if I eat well and exercise and do the things that I am supposed to do, that I will not have those diseases. There are certain kinds of cancers that are lifestyle related diseases. We are, our brains are no different. Our brains change from long-term drug use. Just like I can change my body, I can change my brain again if I stop using and get the help that I need. There comes a time when the body is so impacted by the substances that even if somebody quits using, it can be too late. It affects their liver, it affects their kidneys, it affects their hearts. They can have strokes, they can have brain diseases. We know that alcohol specifically can create a lot of brain diseases that they don't recover from. So is a disease like I'm walking down the street and I get a disease? No, I don't ever have to be an addict. Anybody can become an addict, but I don't ever need to be an addict. I can die never having diabetes. I can die never having substances in problems in my life. The problem is we have a medical community who willingly supports and are overworked and will give drugs readily to move people through their offices. So can the brain change? So the brain is craving these? Yes. Is that a disease? That's what some of the professionals are calling it. Can they get rid of the disease? Absolutely. You give the brain enough time to heal. We know the liver can heal. We know that the people cannot have diabetes once they've had it if they live right. So is it a disease? I guess it's how do we term it? What's the terminology for disease? Does it affect the brain? Absolutely. Does it change the brain? Absolutely. So that supports 35-day treatment programs aren't going to cut it. 90-day treatment programs aren't going to cut it because the brain takes time to heal. The brain takes time not to be triggered when they hear somebody cutting something on a glass table and their brain can be triggered for cocaine or that is the challenge. Long-term treatments, education, and staying away from it. What would I tell somebody who is looking for a treatment program for a family member? Call the 800 number. 1-800 USA 2525. 1-800 USA 2525. Somebody will pick up that phone and get you in touch with someone who is going to explain the program to you. This is a program that works. If it doesn't work, it's because the person chooses not to follow the program when they leave. The other problem is, in my experience, having had the opportunity to support others to come here, families. If the family does not buy off on the concept and support the clinical staff in doing what they feel they need to do to help their loved one, it's not going to work. The family has to be willing to make changes in their own lives in order to help the loved one that is using substances. And if they do not follow the program and the advice and the direction from those who are working with their loved one, then they're going to have problems. So what makes it work for them? They follow the advice, they send their loved one here, and they learn what they need to do in their own lives to change. So when their loved one comes home, they can continue the process of change, because the process of change starts here, it doesn't end here. Where would my daughter be if she didn't come here? I don't know. I don't know if she'd be alive. I know where I would be if anything other than her getting help. I would be devastated. I would be lost. I would be the saddest person in the world because nothing got her attention. She told me that. Habilitat got my attention. And as long as, which I think is probably the reality, I will do anything other than get sober. Whatever's easier, I'm going to do. I think that is human nature. And she would have done whatever was easier. If somebody had said to her, you can come and stay with me, you don't have to go, I think she would have done that. I've had the opportunity to refer quite a bit of people to Habilitat, starting with my daughter, and have been impressed with the professionalism, the hard work, and the expectation that Habilitat clinical staff has. And I knew that whoever would come here would leave knowing that they've accomplished something. So when I would meet with clients, a lot of times, most of the people that I sent here weren't my clients. I was very open and upfront that my daughter was in treatment at Habilitat. My family was very open and upfront that my daughter was at Habilitat, and I would get calls from mothers saying, I heard your daughter's at this wonderful facility in Hawaii. I've got a child, or I've got children. Can you help me hook up with them? And I would say yes, and I would help them start the ball rolling. I've sent 2 or 3 of my clients who were struggling and continued to struggle and to continue to struggle with drug addiction and did not have the tools or the family support to help them make those changes. And at the point that they were at their end, please help me, I was able to offer them, would you be willing to? And I would explain about Habilitat. And they would bring in their parents and family members, and we would talk about it, and we would do conference calls with someone in the admissions department who would lay out the whole program, which is something I very much appreciate about Habilitat. They hold no punches. You know exactly what you're coming into before you get here. And that is very important. So I'm grateful that I was open and honest about my own family struggles with addiction. Because of that, we've been able to help others. And I think that is what I'm so grateful for. Habilitat has never turned me down when I've made a phone call. And I've asked Jeff, what happens if you're full? And he said, we'll make room. So I appreciate that. So that's usually how people would come to me, through mothers in desperation, worried that their children were going to die, and probably would have. So if you or anyone you know needs help for any kind of addiction problem, I urge you with all my heart to call Habilitat at 1-800-USA 2525. That's 1-800-USA 2525. Get help now. It's available.